What's going on, Dark Magical community, and welcome back to the channel. Today I have a very important discussion video about my previous regional experience and kind of how I'm feeling about Dark Magician at the current moment. What's up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. As you saw in the introduction, today I'm going to be talking about the deck that I piloted at the Greenville Regional this past weekend on the 18th in Greenville, South Carolina. Why I picked the deck that I picked, and kind of how I feel about this deck versus Dark Magician. So going into this event, I had worked a lot with a plethora of rogue decks, everything from Pendulum Magician to Heroes to Burning Abyss to Libromancer to Dark Magician. And I felt as if all of those decks had their own issues that existed inside the meta, whether it be getting caught in the crossfire with cards people were already playing, or just having bad matchups in general. The thing about this is, like, let's take, for example, a deck like Branded Despia and compare it to a deck like Heroes. So both decks essentially lose to the same cards like Dimensional Barrier, cards like Droll Lockbird. The only difference is the fact that a deck like Branded Despia can more easily recover from those cards than Heroes. If you get deburied in Heroes, you will have to pass your turn, where at least in Branded Despia you can search some cards, set some things up to be able to play on your opponent's turn. Same thing with Droll and Lockbird. At least if you go normal summon a Luber, search Branded Fusion, they droll you, at least you still have Branded Fusion, where in Heroes, if you go Stratos, search, say, Ferris, etc., and you get drolled there, well, you are pretty much stuck for the rest of the turn. So we're going to be drawing some comparisons. I think I really want to compare this to Dark Magician in this video, this deck. And I kind of think this deck is what Dark Magician wishes it was, or what Dark Magician should have been. So the deck that I played at the regionals past weekend, that I got 24th place at, I was one win from getting into top 8. Unfortunately, I lost my last round to an undefeated. I ended up going 6-2-1 at the event. This was also my second week playing Branded Despia. So we're going to get into this discussion here and why I feel as if this deck is very similar to Dark Magician, but is just significantly better. So first off in the discussion, we have our triple copies of Aluber, the Jester of Despia, basically copying exactly what Magician's Rod does. So this card allows you to search for any branded spell or trap, and if a fusion monster you control leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect or because of battle, you target an effect monster your opponent controls, bring this guy back, and negate that monster's effects at the end of the turn. So it does have the recycle effect, very similar to what Rod does, and this is basically your main searcher of the deck. So let's get into why this card is much better than playing, much better in theory than Magician's Rod. So not only do we have, obviously, the proactive plays of Branded Fusion, which Dark Magician does not have a Fusion Summon card from deck that Rod can grab. We also have cards like Branded Lost that protect our Fusion Summons, as well as cards like Despia Theater of the Branded, which kind of, in a sense, give us the... I compare this card to this makes me feel like this deck is very similar to Burning Abyss because of this card, because, like, basically they kill your, let's say they kill your fusion, well then your Aluber revives itself. If they kill your Aluber, the field spell revives the fusion that they killed, and it just creates like a constant cycle, kind of like Seer Dante, where Dark Magician only really has that in the form of like Eternal Soul. And then we also have like Branded Banishment and Branded in Red, which are more of like our reactive cards that we're playing. So Obviously, this deck is very versatile in the things that it can do. Also, I have gotten, out of every game that I have gotten debarriered so far, I have yet to lose a game where I was debarriered. And I do feel like in Dark Magician, that would be much different, because one of the games I got debarriered, I was able to go Aluber to search my branded in red. I had nibbed my opponent that turn, so I had a nib on the field, they had a nib token. So I set these two with an Aluber on the field. So when they went to attack, I dropleted away my Aluber to have the nib token, then branded in red backed my Aluber to my hand to make Guardian Chimera to get ahead for the next turn, where I feel like Dark Magician heroes just very much so get blown away. The next card I played 3 of was, I did play 3 Fallen Bowelbats in the deck, because I felt as if you're playing Patchwork and Poly, which I am, that you don't mind hard drawing this card as much. I would sort of compare this card to Dark Magician, this being the card that you really never really want to see, but because your deck does revolve around this, playing this at 3 because of Poly is okay, whereas like most of the time in DM you want to be playing 2, because at least Albaz, he's 1800, so he's kind of big, and it does come up to fuse with your opponent's monsters sometimes, mainly in the mirror, but every now and again you want to summon Albaz and get something out of the way. So then we have our, I guess this would be compared to like Illusion of Chaos, 3 Despian Tragedy. I did a lot of back and forth on the numbers between 2 and 3 through this, but I listened to Andres Torres, and he said that you need 3 in the grind. So this card can search us any Despia if it's sent to grave or banished by a card effect. Keep in mind this does not trigger off sending it through Droplet, because that is a cost, not an effect. It also has the effect you can banish from your graveyard to reset a branded spell or trap. You can only use one of those effects per turn. Then we have Edge of Chain, which is kind of like our fusion fuel. So a lot of times in Dark Magician, you end up using up your hand very quickly to not really gain much. So one thing I was really concerned with playing DM right now is the fact that it takes so much. There are so many unknowns going into it, like Red Eyes Fusion having to resolve, which means you probably need to be playing Crossout Designator to make sure that that card does resolve. Whereas like the deck doesn't have ways to really keep going, where like fusing with this guy in your hand can get you Patchwork, which can get you a Poly and another body to keep fusing. Then also this guy being able to trigger off being sent for cost on Droplet is also really huge as well. So something else that we have that DM does not have is we have a searchable hand trap monster negate that also searches us monsters when it's banished. So Tri-Brigade McCourier can discard itself. Your opponent activates a monster effect while you control a fusion monster that lists Fallen of Albaz as material. And if this card is banished, you can search for a monster that has Fallen of Albaz in its text. Or is Fallen of Albaz. So very good here as well. I feel like DM needs a decent hand trap. I also did play the Ad Libitum of Despia, the Dramaturge of Despia, and the Despian Comedy. This is one card I feel like people will eventually start to see the value in again. This was my best card I played all day. This card kind of reminded me of the way that you can kind of use illusion magic in DM to kind of cheat around stuff like skill drain. So like one game I was like facing down some back row, I make Guardian Chimera, chain skill drain, and I chain Comedy, tribute my Chimera, bring this guy back. Nukes the field, he ends up getting rid of this guy. Then it revives back any fusion because I had the field spell up as well. So, and a lot of times like your turn 1 field, the best turn 1 field that I found that you can set up is like Despia Theater the Branded plus like Mirror Jade plus like this guy, because if they super poly you, Dramaturge will bring himself back because he was still used for fusion material. And then also because Dramaturge left the field spell will revive back your Mirror Jade. So very cool there. I do like that a lot. Then I played Fairy Tale Snow, which honestly should never have gotten unbanned. This card is insane. I also played Albion, the Shrouded Dragon, and Springen's Kit. I wasn't sold on Kit because in the very early days of me playing the deck, I was inexperienced with the deck, and I didn't really realize that basically playing Kit is so you can get to your branded engine through like to get to like your branded fusion through your branded engine. So like McCourier being banished off a lure, things like that. So those are the monsters. The main deck is 47 cards. So next we have our Secrets of Dark Magic, which is branded in red. I played it 2. Just a better Secrets of Dark Magic. This would be a good retrain. Obviously targeting a Despia or Fallen Bowelbats, then I get back to hand, fusion summon by banishing. This is also like the deck I played at my locals and ended up getting first place with, so the list is a little different. I actually played double tactics at my locals this past Sunday. I was actually main decking Super Poly in this slot at the regional. To go with that, I also actually just played double allure. I'm still not sure if this is correct. Following that, I did play 3 droplet. So at the regional, I played double droplet and 3 allure. But at the locals, I ended up going with 3 droplet, 2 allure, and I'm just still testing that out. DM, I feel like probably should be playing allure. So like, I wanted to play branded DM, but I felt like it was just worse branded Despia. But it is nice because I feel like because of the branded engine, you can get away with playing allure now, because like your Lubellian can shuffle DM back into the deck. So I also played 3 Fry for Patchwork and double poly. This engine's amazing. No one ever stops this at all. People just hold their Ash Blossoms for this. And basically, if I opened up my opening hand and I drew this card and it was the only line I had, I kind of just had to branded fusion and pray. But if I ever had an option, so like if my hand was a lot of monsters and I like branded opening, which speaking of the devil, branded opening, into like a Luber, and I said if I get ashed on branded fusion, I lose, I just grab something like the field spell. That way I can still be able to at least play the game and maybe then be able to get to my branded fusion through other card effects. And by that point, if they have ash, I'm already so established that it doesn't really matter that much. I'm just going to end up resetting it with a tragedy on the follow-up. Then the field spell, which was like my second favorite card alongside Despian Comedy. Branded Lost, in my opinion, the card that makes the deck good, being able to, your opponent can't respond to any time that you fusion summon, and it gets you pluses. So if you can stack your chain links, you can really break Branded Lost. And the one-ofs played Gold Sark, which a lot of people went away from, but I still like having multiple copies of Tragedy, which is why I also played Foolish Burial, which can send like Token Collector or Fairy Tale Snow. Then the last 2 were Duster and Called By. I only drew Duster a couple of times, but every time I drew Duster, it was great. A lot of people told me not to main it because it was a brick. Where my thoughts on that were kind of like, if I end up bricking because I drew only Feather Duster, then my hand was already a brick to begin with. So really wanted to respect Mystic Mine. Then the last card in my deck was Branded Banishment, which is insane. This card just wins you the mirror. Whoever like establishes this, in my experience, plus like Lost, plus like a Tragedy to reset this for the following turn, basically just win the mirror. Also, you notice that I did not main Crossout Designator. A lot of people were playing Crossout for like D-Barrier, and I was in the beginning, and I kind of believed you couldn't play this deck without playing Crossout with like D-Barrier in your side. But basically the theory was that if my opponent opens up optimally and goes like, let's take Sword Soul for example, and they go like Queen Longwon, Shizhao, Blackout backed by D-Barrier, or that same field but replace the Queen Longwon with Baronne. It doesn't matter if I have Crossout for D-Barrier, I'm still not winning that game. So like basically the theory was if my opponents open up great like that, I was going to lose anyway. And if they open suboptimally with D-Barrier, I can do enough to be able to at least be able to play on their turn and live. And that theory has worked out so far every time. I'll do the extra deck first, I'll do the sides. So I did play double Albion, setting this guy off Mirror Jade to be able to search. I also played Mirror Jade, which is kind of like our Dragoon, but honestly 10 times better. This guy is so problematic for decks to get over. I never realized how good one quick play Banish and then a Regeki during the end phase is, but they have so many ways to be able to reset this guy, bring him back, and like get his effect off multiple times. And then we also have Guardian Chimera, who is insane as well. A couple other of the All-Bass fusions. We have Titanic Lad. At the regional, I actually played Despian Briskinian. because I played Super Poly, but the locals I played Titanic Lad. Then I wanted to respect Dragon Link, so I did play the Alba Linitus. I never summoned it. Then when I played against Dragon Link, they sniped my Albaz with the Chaos Dragon Legionnaire back to deck. So unfortunately, I did send this one time to get a fusion spell, but then we have Libellion to fusion summon, basically, obviously. Then I played Double Masquerade. A lot of the really unga bunga crazy combo decks can't play through 2 of these, paying 12 for everything, so that guy was crazy too. Then Draco Stapelia for like the mirror, anything generic was like for Super Poly. Sometimes you just make this yourself or brand it in red. Despian Cortus, and probably a card I wasn't sure about that I ended up really liking was Glory Dragon. Sometimes you just need to be able to Mirror Jade, send this, and then have a negate for the following turn when you have Mirror Jade. So really happy I played the Glory Dragon. In the side, once again, we really wanted to respect Mystic Mind, so did play 3 Twin Twister. I played the 1 red Reboot, which was insane. I did play 3 Nibiru and 3 Deep Barrier. I never saw Deep Barrier all day. Every time I sighted it, I just never saw it. For the locals, I played Token Collector because a lot of people are on Sword Soul. For the regional, I played Droll and Lockbird. Never saw Droll and Lockbird, unfortunately. And then I also still played Zombie World and Banshee just for the Flow Wanderings matchup because it is so scary. So, basically throughout the course of this video, you've seen that I have made comparisons between this deck and Dark Magician because I do feel like the decks are very similar, like Branded Opening kind of being like a better Dark Magical Circle, and then obviously like a Luber being like our Magician's Rod, this guy being like our Dark Magician, this being our Red Eyes Fusion, and then like I kind of compare Tragedy to being Illusion of Chaos. This guy is sort of like IOC as well, but the deck can take advantage of so many generic cards like Gold Sark, Allure, even just Polymerization. Being able to keep up your hand count is really good. And like I said, the Branded Lost is really good as well. Never negging off of Droplet because we're playing triple copies of Edge Imp Saber. And stuff like Foolish Burial having multiple utilities in the deck, where in DM it only sends Dark Magician or the Rod, but that's very, very awkward most of the time. So, but yes, basically these are all like cards the deck can take advantage of, and they very much mirror Dark Magician, but you can tell that Konami really actually wanted this deck to be a tier 1 deck because this does not have any clauses on it that hurt us. We don't care. We're locked into fusions. That's all we play. Unlike Ref, Branded Opening grabbing us any card in the entire deck, whereas Circle can only grab you spells and traps or a Dark Magician, which needs to be eroded. So basically, I'm going to go ahead and start wrapping this up. I picked this deck, which I've already talked about this a couple times throughout the course of this video, because I just felt like the deck has a good matchup against everything. I don't think there's anything that's really just terrible for the deck to play against. It's pretty well rounded in most areas. Yes, people made fun of me for playing common tragedies, but I laughed because my commons were beating their ultras. I won every mirror match I played against. I didn't lose a mirror. I do not believe I even went to game 3 in any mirrors. But the deck was very, very good. I am going to continue playing Branded Despia for the foreseeable future before I go back to any rogue things, at least at a higher tournament event. I do want to go back to playing Dark Magician eventually, but I am going to need Konami to seriously give us some good support. I've talked about this several times on the channel about cards like Illusion of Chaos. That was a step in the right direction. Dragoon was a step in the right direction. I'd even go as far as to say Magician Salvation was a step in the right direction alongside Magician Souls, but we still need more consistency. Dark Magical Circle only being able to take spells, traps, or Dark Magician is so outdated. Only getting 1 banish. The deck is just incredibly fragile, and I miss playing Dark Magician. I miss playing Dark Magician like for the channel's sake, and I miss making Dark Magician content for you guys. And hopefully every now and again I can throw in a rogue Dark Magician deck profile, because this is Dark Magical Gaming. This is the ground that the channel was built on, was Dark Magician, and I apologize to you guys from stepping away from the deck for so long. But I do have my Nationals invite now, thanks to Brandon Despia. And things are definitely looking up here, so I might get back into the lab with DM and kind of see what I can play around with. So thank you guys for watching the video. Let me know your thoughts down below. What do you think Dark Magician needs to be able to be not necessarily a tier 1 deck, because I don't think that's ever going to happen, but to just be a deck that's just significantly better than it is now. So let me know your thoughts. All right, guys, and as always, this is Mike from Dark Magical Gaming signing out until the next one. Take care, everyone.